So I think we can just start off. I think Patrick gave a very good introduction there, so no further introduction is needed. Just perhaps mention to begin that my own interest, how I came to be interested in Markiewicz, has to do with cataloguing the works in the King's Inns, portraits in the King's Inns, and one of his paintings was there, and I just thought it was unusual and strange that he should be painting a Lord Chief Justice, considering that he was the husband of our famous revolutionary, as it were. I thought the two things didn't match up very well, and I was surprised, so I did a little bit of investigating. My main sort of what I really want to talk about tonight is his life as an artist and what he achieved in his own life as an artist. And I won't be talking too much about Constance, because I think that's an area that most people know about. Certainly most Irish people know about Constance quite well. So I'm going to try to cover more, concentrate much more on his life. So just to start off with then, he was born in Żywiecówka, in this small village, but they had a large estate. The family had a very large estate. He was from a noble family, and he was one of 9 children. So although they had a lot of land, they didn't have a huge amount of money, it seems. His son, in a later newspaper article, mentioned that they sort of suffered repression after the 1863 rebellion, and some of their lands, money, whatever, was confiscated. So they weren't as rich, perhaps, as they would have been in the past. And as I say, there were 9 children in the family. So he was a second son, so he wasn't going to inherit. So he was encouraged, from an early age to make a career for himself of some sort. So initially he went to, having gone to a gymnasium in Kherson, in a city down near the Black Sea, on the Dnieper, the estuary. He was there for about 8 years, and then he moved to Kiev. And I'm just showing this particular picture because it shows the actual art college. Well, the art college was located in the City Hall building, which you can see there, in the main street in Kiev. And he was supposed to be studying law. I mean, he was enrolled in the Kiev University, and he was studying law for 2 years, but that was not his interest. He wasn't at all interested in law, but he was interested in art, so he went to the art school at night time, and his teachers were Polish painters there that were working there, that were quite famous, that had studied in Paris and in Petersburg. So he had a very good sort of early grounding, if you like, in art at that school. And this is one of his early drawings from about 1892. And another early work, which you can see that he was really quite accomplished quite early on, and he had sort of classical style. He would have been initially presumably interested in horses, because they bred horses on the estate at Żywiecówka. And just to mention, before I sort of race on, particularly for the sort of Irish people in the audience, that Żywiecówka today is in the Ukraine, and it's called Żywiecówka, but at that stage it was part of the Russian Empire, and that had a sort of quite a big bearing on his future life, the fact that he was actually a Russian citizen, although he was from a Polish family. And then, of course, previous to that, it was part of the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth. So the sort of area he came from had a lot to do with his personality and his makeup and his later path in life, if you like. So he finally managed to get away from Kiev and go to Paris. I say finally managed because his parents were very much against this move. They were convinced that he needed to be a lawyer and do something that he could make money out of. But he persuaded them that to let him go to Paris to study art. And they must have provided him with some money, because he enrolled in the Académie des Beaux-Arts, which he had to pay for, obviously. And that was quite a feat to get in there, because you had to do a special entrance exam and so on. And it was very popular among you know, art students from the whole of Europe wanted to go there, and he managed to get in, so he was clearly had talent right at an early stage. And when he arrived in Paris in 1894, he immediately sort of rent out an apartment with his girlfriend, who he'd secretly managed to have her come to Paris as well. She had persuaded her parents that she wanted to do music, which she did study music in Paris, and then they got married, and very quickly they had 2 children. They had one child called Stanisław in 1896, and another one the next year called Richard. And at the same time that he had his family and everything there, he wasn't neglecting his studies. He was doing really very well in Paris as a painter, and his works were accepted in all those years. Every year he had work exhibited in the salon, the independent salon in Paris, and this was one of them. This particular one was exhibited in '98, but prior to that he had a very big painting called Bread. And I mention that picture particularly because I have no image of it. I don't know what it looks like, but it's out there somewhere, I presume. It was a very, very large triptych with the main scene was a big loaf of bread and salt and some sort of tablecloth of some sort in the middle, and then on the side panels there were pictures of harvesting and fields. And I mean, I just have this from a description in a book, but this was apparently Constance Markiewicz's favourite painting, and it hung in their house. And so, you know, I would say it went somewhere. You know, it must be out there somewhere in a private collection. It would be wonderful to sort of to find that. But anyway, so that was one of his works. He also did like this prestigious portraits. We actually don't know who the figure here is. It's just called Portrait of a Woman. And it's at the moment it's in the National Gallery in Warsaw, and it's the only picture they have by Markiewicz there. Just click on to the next one. This is a picture. It's not a brilliant photograph of it, but I suppose this is his most Kazimierz Markiewicz's most famous painting in Ireland, because this is of Constance, Countess Markiewicz, but it's when they first met, 1899. They met in Paris, and as you can see, it's a lovely romantic painting. It's a full-scale, full life-size painting, and today it hangs in Leinster House. And the reason that it hangs there is naturally because of the significance of Constance in our history and so on, and her part in the fight for Irish independence. But more particularly, it's hanging there because of her significance as a woman representative in Parliament. She was the first woman ever to be elected to a Parliament, as far as I know, anywhere. She was elected to the Westminster Parliament in 1918, and she didn't take up her post, as it were, because being a Sinn Féin member, she was refusing to make the oath of allegiance to the British Crown, so she didn't take up her position there. And then in the next year, she was appointed Minister for Labour in the first Irish Dáil, in the first Irish Parliament. So from those 2 points of view, she's quite, you know, worldwide famous